Today's lesson is 13.3, multiplying a fraction by a whole number using symbols. The objective for today is that I will multiply a whole number and a fraction to solve problems. The first problem we're looking at says, a recipe for a 1-gallon fruit punch calls for 3/4 of a cup of orange juice. How much orange juice is needed to make 8 gallons of fruit juice? So for this one, what's really important is for us to not get hung up on the measurements. So I start with recognizing that it says 1 gallon calls for 3/4 of a cup of orange juice. So I would take my 3/4 because it's asking me how many cups of orange juice would be needed in order to make 8 gallon. Well, if I know that 3/4 is all I need for one, I could multiply to figure out how much orange juice would be needed in order to figure out how much orange juice would be needed for 8 gallons. So again, just like we've talked about before, I would multiply my whole number, so my big number, times the top number, and leave that denominator the same. So 8 times 3, and I would write my answer down here and have 24/4. What's really important is not just leave my answer like 24/4. Again, that's an improper fraction. So I have to ask myself, 24 divided by 4. So I ask myself again, how many times 4 goes into 24? When we read it as a division problem, top to the bottom, 24 divided by 4, we know that that is equal to 6. And we have to add our label, so we go back to whatever was originally in the problem next to orange juice, which was cups. So for 8 gallons, I need 6 cups. For this lesson, we're going to go through and do a few problems together, and then I'm going to expect you to do some more. So in your notes, I do want you to have all of these problems written down. So on this first one, I have 4 times 1/3. So again, I keep my denominators the same, and I multiply my top number times my whole number. 4 times 1 would give me 4. What is important is that I want to make sure that I don't just leave my answers as improper fractions. So I have to ask myself, how many times does 3 go into 4, or read it as 4 divided by 3? 3 goes into 4 one whole time. Then I subtract out 3 from 4. There's 1 left over. Denominator doesn't change. So 4 times 1/3 is equal to 4/3, or 1 1/3. Checking out my next one, again, I multiply my whole number, so 4 times 5, and I get 20. Denominator piece doesn't change. So on this one, again, I can always divide to figure out how it would be written as a mixed number. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 20 minus 16 would give me my answer of 4. So would be equal to 2 4/8, which again, it could be equal to 2 1/2. It's always interesting with fractions how many different steps I can find. So when you multiply a whole number times a fraction, you multiply your whole number times your numerator and leave your denominator the same. So 9 times 3 give me 27, and I have 27/5. So on this one, I ask myself how many times 5 goes into 27. Well, I know that it goes in 5 times. 5 groups of 5 is what I would subtract from the top number to give me 27 minus 25. So I have 2 left over. Denominator doesn't change. My next one, again, denominator is going to stay at 5 in this one because that's what it is in the problem. So I multiply my whole number times my numerator. 8 times 2 gives me 16. So for 16/5, I could divide it out like this, or I could ask myself how many times 5 goes into 16, which is exactly what I'm doing over here. This way just gives you a better visual of what you're working with. So 5 goes into 16 3 times. There's 1 left over. My denominator does not change. In your notes, I want you to try number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's take a look at number 5 and number 6. Number 5 says, medicine is taken 10 days if the dose is 3/4 of an ounce per day. So my multiplication equation would be 10 times 3/4 would be equal to 30/4. Again, could simplify. 30 divided by 4 goes in 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. When I subtract, I have 2. So I could also say that it's 7 2/4 of medicine, or it would be 7 1/2. Right? I want you to also try number 6. So you just need to really have this piece, so the whole equation for number 6. So complete 1 through 4 and number 6 in your notes.